This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Welcome to Prime Spark, the podcast that brings you conversations that inspire, celebrate, and empower women over 55. The second women's revolution is here, and it is time for us to fuel a spark that will ignite your way forward, illuminate your path, and reflect your gifts in the world. Now, here is your host for Prime Spark, Sarah Hart.
Hi, and welcome to Prime Spark. I'm Sarah Hart, and I'm so happy you're here. Prime Spark is designed for women over 55 or close, with a goal to help us all live our happiest, most fulfilling, and productive lives now and in the future. The mission of Prime Spark is to change the way our society sees and treats older women. That's a big mission, which means we all need to be involved and we need to get going now. And today I have the great pleasure of speaking with Teri Bach, a woman whose work I greatly admire. Teri Bach was a psychotherapist for nearly 30 years. After waking up in her own life and seeing that she was just moving through life, forgetting about the things she'd always wanted to do, like travel, but had stopped doing, she got clear on what she wanted, got rid of the limiting beliefs that were telling her she was too old, it was too late, and so many others. And now has a plan of action for herself to move to Italy and travel more. She coaches women over 50 to live a life without regrets by getting clear on the life they really want, discover what beliefs are holding them back, and then clearing those beliefs so they can live life on their own terms. Welcome, Teri. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you, Sarah. So happy to be here.
So just to get started, let me ask you, do you experience getting older? And if you do, what is that experience? And if you don't, why do you think it is that you don't?
Well, yes, I do. I think it's hard not to experience it, whether you let it run you or not. Is the other thing. Of course, I'm 68 years old, so I don't have the energy I had when I was in my 30s. I don't look the same as I did back then. And I also notice that I feel more urgent about doing things now. It's like, before, it's easy when you're young to think of, oh, yeah, I want to do that someday. And then you kind of lose it and you don't ever get to that thing. Now, when it comes up, it's like, okay, let me put that in my calendar because I'm going to do that thing. So you start seeing I don't want to say the end of life because that sounds horrible, but you're closer to the end than you were when you were in your 20s and 30s. So, you want to do more things. You want to get those things done that you've been wanting to get done.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm sure you have this experience also. When I talk to women over 50 or 55, they pretty much feel that way. They feel
exactly.
Of course, we feel we're getting older in our bodies. Most of us have some recognition of that. But other than that, it's sort of let me get at it,
Right. Right.
It's that kind of feeling. And so you were a therapist for many years, and now you're a coach.
Yes.
Can you describe your journey from being a therapist to being a coach?
It wasn't a pretty one. You mean my transition from being a therapist to a coach? Okay. Let's see where to start. So yes, I did that. I was a therapist for many years in California, and it was not an easy journey to do that. At the time, they didn't recognize education from other states. So I had to jump through a lot of hoops to get licensed in therapy as a therapist there. So when I moved to Minnesota, I thought, I'm not going through that again. So, because being a therapist, you get licensed from state to state. If you move out of state, you have to get relicensed in that state. And I did not want to have to go through all that again. So I thought, well, I can be a therapist or I can be a coach. That'll be an easy, seamless transition, which of course it wasn't. So I started, this was in 2013 when I moved full-time and needed to be a coach. I decided to be I went after my certification as a tapping into wealth coach. And I loved it. I loved the work. I was picking up some clients because I was networking my brains out. And then after my mom died, I felt lost. I felt totally lost. I didn't want to continue doing that work as a coach. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life because I had spent so much time taking care of my mom. And I thought, and I started feeling the regrets too, the regrets of all the things I hadn't done yet in my life. And I thought, I can't be the only woman to feel this way. I know other people are taking care of their parents. I know other people have changed their lives. And I know other women might have to be feeling lost at this stage in life. And so that's when I shifted over to this kind of work. Because it's so important to me that women don't lose hope, that they can do so many things that they want to do. So that was, and I said it was a struggle because I thought I had kind of an easy time with my therapy practice because, I worked with insurance companies. They gave me people. I worked for so many years that other people would refer family and friends to me. So I had a full practice without much effort. And I was expecting coaching to be the same. And now I look back and I think, oh, you were so naive. But anyway, so my struggle has been learning the skills of finding clients and not having people send them right to me. So, yeah.
I think that's a very apt description for a lot of entrepreneurs. Many of us, I think, are highly skilled at what we do and highly unskilled at getting clients to do it well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole skill set in and of itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So they may be so different, may not be answerable, but what did you like about being a therapist as compared with being a coach? And what do you like about being a coach as compared with being a therapist?
Well, let's see. I liked being a therapist. I feel like I got a lot of respect because people know how much education you have to have and how difficult it is. So, and you have to get licensed, all of that kind of thing. So I feel like, this is all looking back. I'm not sure I felt that respect when I was actually doing it, but I think there's that. And I just love working with people. And I have to say my coaching isn't real different than my therapy because I still go deep with people and I still use tools like, tapping and things like that with my coaching clients like I did with my therapy clients. So that part isn't real different. But let's see, the second part was, what do I like about coaching that's different? I hated the business of therapy. Absolutely. You had to have malpractice insurance. They were always talking about getting sued and you can't do this and you can't do that. And now I think things have changed since when I got out of the field, but back then it was very, punitive almost. It felt heavy and, like this weight. So I remember when I made the decision to not do therapy anymore, I felt this really great relief. And I thought, now I can do whatever I want. I don't have somebody hanging over me saying, no, you can't do that. I mean, that's the good and the bad of coaching, I think. I think there do need to be more regulation than there is. But yeah, so it was a sense of freedom becoming a coach.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are some of the things you're doing now that are most meaningful for you in addition to this coaching practice?
Well, I recently moved to another part of the country because I like adventure, and I wasn't doing adventure. I didn't have much adventure in my life for years. And I thought, I don't want to live in Minnesota anymore. I hate the winters, of course, and the summers are short. I lived on a lake, so I loved the summers there, but they were like getting to be like 2 months out of the year. And my mom wasn't there anymore. My brother had moved away. So I didn't really have a lot of family there anymore. And I was feeling really stuck and stagnant because I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy anymore. And so I had already lived on the West Coast, lived in the upper Midwest. And I thought, I've never lived on the East Coast. Let's check that out. And so process of elimination, I thought, I've never been to North Carolina. Let's try there. And so, I joke almost like I threw a dart at the map and picked a place. But I mean, I did talk to a couple of people who lived here before I moved here. So that was an adventure for me to just come out here. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't.
That's very brave.
I know. And it turned out well because a friend of mine from Minnesota said, oh, I want to go with you for the road trip. And so she came out with me and she helped me find an apartment. I'm just renting right now. And, but I knew I needed my life to be shaken up. And it did. I'm meeting new people. I'm getting out there. I've joined a meetup group. I'm meeting my neighbors, and my business is starting to flow again, which it hadn't been doing for the last probably couple of years. So I feel more alive, and I'm planning another trip back to Italy. In fact, I'm going next month. And so I feel more alive right now.
That's a very brave move that you did. And you probably, when you say things are flowing, it's. I don't know this, but my hunch is that when you were in Minnesota taking care of your mother, things weren't flowing. I mean,
No.
your life wasn't flowing, so it's not surprising that things weren't flowing. So
yeah, and I think after she died and I stayed, because I stayed for another 3 years. Everything, I mean, it was hard for me to even go into town where she lived, and I grew up there because everything reminded me of her. There wasn't any positive feeling about going into town, and I lived out on a lake. I mean, it was pretty rural, so I had to go into town if I needed groceries or, things like that. So it wasn't a good environment for me anymore. Yeah.
I am very jealous that you're going to Italy next month. I love Italy. Now, I've heard you say that Italy feels like home, and I'm fascinated by that. So what does that mean to you? What does home mean to you?
I'm not even sure if I can put this into words, but I'll tell you a little, after I tell you that, I want to go into a little bit of background. So I don't, I went there in 2018, a few months after Mom had died, and she left me money, and I thought, and this, it was all so synchronistic. I don't know if that's a word, but I had been on this woman's email list for years, and I hardly ever opened her emails. I happened to open this email, and she and this other woman had started this group where they took entrepreneurs to different countries for a month. So you could live, you get an apartment, you get a workspace, and you can, live like the locals. And they were going to Italy in a few weeks. And I thought, I'm going. Actually, it took me a little longer to say I'm going. I didn't even have a passport that was good. It had expired. So I had to do that. I had a lot of work to do before I could go to Italy, but I did that, and I got there and I thought, I feel so comfortable in this country. I loved everything about it. And I know it has its downsides. I'm not blind to those. But the feeling I had when I was there, it's like, people wanted to go here and there, and I didn't care. I mean, I wanted to see sights. It didn't matter to me where I went. The whole country felt like a piece of me. I don't know how else to word that. But then when I got home from Italy, I remembered, actually, I didn't remember. I was going through my old yearbooks, my high school yearbooks. So you can imagine how many years ago that was. And 50. And, but I had saved them all, and I was reading through what people had said. I don't know why I did this, but one of my close friends in high school she had written in there, I think it was my junior year, she said, I hope you get your dream of living in Europe. And I thought, oh my God, I had completely forgotten about, but I remember now, as in high school, I thought I had this vision of me, sitting at those romantic outdoor cafes, reading and writing, because I love to read and write. And that I lived at the time I think I thought it was France, because I actually spoke French back then. And, but when I read what Diane had written, I thought, oh my God, no wonder. I think this happens to so many of us. We have these dreams when we're younger, and we shove them down. Life gets in the way. We suppress these dreams and we forget about them. But our body doesn't forget about them. Right? So I think, I think that was part of the reason it felt like home, because there was a part of me that knew I was supposed to be living in Europe.
That's fascinating. So is that the kind of thing that you help women rediscover?
Yes, because I truly believe we all have a dream inside of us, just waiting to come out. And, for a lot of women, they don't know what it is. And so part of the work I do is help them rediscover that dream. And maybe the dream has changed. I mean, it may not be the same dream that they had when they were younger. Things have happened. So, but I help them figure out what that dream is for them, and then help them, look at the limiting beliefs, the fears, all of that kind of stuff that come up for them when they think about going after this dream. Get rid of all of that so they can, and then help them make a plan to make their dream happen.
Yes. So you're going to travel to Italy again. Do you have in the back of your mind living there?
After I met some wonderful women in my group in 2018, and I've stayed in touch with a few of them. And so I think that, anyway, one of them, Jerry, had got me involved with these programs about how to move to Italy. So she and I have both been taking these programs. And along the way, I decided, I don't know if I want to live in Italy full time. It's a lot of work. I don't qualify for any of their visas at the moment because I don't want to retire. And but you can go to Europe for 3 months without a visa. So I think right now my plan is to go for 3 months at a time. And not just Italy, but I want to see France, and I have a cousin who lives in Germany, and I just want to travel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Italy's a big dream. What other dreams do you have right now that you haven't done yet?
Boy, I'm sure there are a lot that I haven't discovered yet that I'm waiting to discover, but I think the travel for me right now is the big one. It's, living on the lake like I did in Minnesota was a huge dream for me for many, many years. And so I'm proud that I made that happen. But then that dream changed, and I know our dreams change too. So right now, travel is kind of what I want to do. I don't know where I want to live in the States yet. I don't know if this is where I want to live forever. But I think I'm liking not knowing right now.
I was just what I was thinking about while you were talking was we sort of, I don't know, I can't find the words, but we sort of stew in our dreams. And there's lots of different things in a stew, and they just sort of simmer. And it's sort of like all of a sudden one of the bubble will come up and burst. And, oh, that's it. That's what I want to do.
Yes.
And as long as we're open and paying attention, we'll see what that bubble's about.
Right. Totally agree with that. And right now that bubble for me is going to Italy.
Right. I can hear that.
I mean, I'm a little obsessed, as you can hear, with Italy at the moment, because this is the 5th time I've planned this trip and it's fallen through.
Oh, wow. Was this mostly COVID?
Well, the first one was. And then the person I was going to go with for 6 weeks said, yeah, I'm not traveling ever to internationally until COVID's over. And I'm thinking, okay, that could be, never. So, so different people, I've planned a trip with different people, and then something has come up for them and they've had to pull out. And so I decided I'm going alone. And I'm okay with that. I'm nervous about going alone. And as soon as I made the decision to go alone and I started making my plans, my friend Jerry, who lives in Florida, said, I want to go with you. And so I said, okay. So anyway, she canceled a tour she's going on. She's going to meet me in southern Italy. We're going to do part of southern Italy. And then we have a tour going on down there too. And then I posted on Facebook that I'm going to Italy. And my cousin who lives in Germany, who I just reconnected with a couple of years ago on Facebook, I hadn't seen her since I was like 10. She said, I'm going to be in Venice at the same time you are. So we've coordinated or she coordinated, I already had mine booked. And so I get to see this cousin who I haven't seen in 50 years. I get to spend a few days with her in Venice. So,
oh, that's wonderful.
Turning into a better trip than if I had planned all of that.
You're not going alone anymore, but I could recommend.
Well, part of it I am.
Part of it. I could recommend a book, Journey for One, by Jody Hopkins. And it's really a good book for women primarily for women who want to travel alone. Because many of us, I think, get to the point in our lives where if we want to travel, and if we don't want to travel in a group, then we have to travel alone. Because we may not have anybody around us who wants to travel at all, where we want to go, or even though we may like them a lot to have coffee with, we don't necessarily want to travel with them. And so there's all sorts of reasons why we end up traveling alone. So anyway, it's a really good book. I recommend it to you.
Okay. There's also a Facebook group, just for your audience, if anybody's interested, a Facebook group called, I should have written down what it's called, Solo Travel After 50 and Loving It, or Solo Travel After 50 in Style, or something like that, and loving it. And I have gotten a lot of inspiration from reading posts for so many other women doing this.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you experience, well, I got about 10 questions. Do you experience, number one, do you experience being treated as an older woman in our culture? And the second question is, if yes or no, is it any different or the same in other cultures? And I guess Italy would be.
Okay. Yeah. I think in our culture, I definitely see a lot of messages for older women. I think we are often overlooked, and depending on where you are. I mean, in Maine society, like me going out and running errands, I think we're often overlooked, or we're a little invisible, or, things like that, which I used to really notice and irritated me. Now I don't care as much. But I think, this really came to my mind too, is, in my work, I'm always, I'm in my marketing, I'm trying to find photos of women over 50 so my target market can relate. There are none. I belong to a service where you can download royalty-free photos. I put in everything from midlife woman to woman over 50. Finally, I put old lady in there. Got something. but the only kind of photos that were popping up were women, a woman with a doctor.
Yes.
Or an older couple, and they didn't look like they were really enjoying each other's company that much. And I'm thinking, really? Is that how the world sees older women? Why can't we have pictures of, independent women having fun with, whether by themselves or with other fun-loving, independent women? So I'd like to change that somehow. I think I know some photographers. I'm going to get them to start submitting pictures like that.
Yes, please. Because for those of us who work with and on behalf of older women, we look for pictures. And what we end up doing is using the same pictures all the time because they're only
exactly, because there aren't any.
Yeah.
If you've looked in my Facebook group, I found that picture of that woman who looks like a, 50, 60, 70-year-old woman, like a real woman. She's not a 30-year-old with a gray wig on, or however they come up with some of these women. They have gray hair, but a lot of women in their 30s have gray hair. So it's just not representative of our group.
Right. Absolutely. That's, I'm sure between the two of us, we've talked to and interviewed many, many older women.
Yes.
And what you hear when you talk to older women is not what is visible to us in advertising or in all sorts of ways. And I don't know how long it's going to take for the media, quote unquote, to catch up with what is real here.
I think we're going to have to do it.
I think we are doing it. Yeah.
I do too.
You said when I asked you, do you experience it? You said that you had seen it and so forth, but not so much now. And that's fascinating to me. So because what I wonder is, you oftentimes hear older women say they feel invisible or unnoticed. And
right.
What can we do for ourselves to change that?
Yeah, I think changing beliefs. I'm so big on changing our beliefs because, I've grown up feeling invisible. I'm That's just one of my things that I've had to really work on over the years. And so then when I became older and I thought, oh no, not still, now I really feel invisible. I think what helped me was changing my attitude about it, thinking, okay, other women are feeling this way too, but that doesn't mean I have to experience it, or I have to feel it. I guess, let me backtrack. I think it's what goes on. I think a lot of younger people don't notice older women, but that doesn't mean we have to buy into it. I guess it's really more what I'm trying to say. And what I have done personally is I'm around more women my age now. And so you don't get that when you're with women your age.
Right.
And so that has helped me immensely. But I think some of it's the inner stuff too.
I think sometimes when I think about the question I ask you, I wonder to what extent is it us changing our attitude toward aging?
Mm-hmm.
Because unless we die, we're going to age.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so to have a negative feeling about getting older is really counterproductive. I heard somebody say something like being anti-aging is like being anti-breathing.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense unless you're ready to die. And if you're ready to die, well, that's okay. But otherwise, it's going to happen.
The other thing that I've noticed is, for me, I've always, and I didn't do this on purpose, it just happened to be something that I've done. I've always had like a woman role model in my life, just a little bit older than I am often. And so when I turned 40, other 40-year-olds around me were freaking out about turning 40. I couldn't wait. I mean, I really have always had the same, and maybe it's because of my mom. I mean, she died when she was 98, and she never seemed to, until the end, have an issue around age. And so I kind of grew up with a good attitude about aging. And I have, every decade, I have had somebody I admire. I have a good friend who's now 80, in her 80s. And she, up until recently, has been traveling all over the world. And she'll just sign up with a tour group and go by herself with a tour, or friends or whatever. But she has never let age stop her either. And so I always look to these women who are doing things that I want to do and get kind of an attitude from them.
That is a wonderful suggestion. And what it also suggests to me is that it's really important for us to do that for younger women.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because unless they have an active older woman in their life, the only thing they will see is negative.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Yes.
Well, Teri, we're coming to the end of our time. This has been delightful. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
Well, email is probably the best. And that would be Teri, which is TERI, at untappedpotentialcoaching.com.
Great. So that's our time today. Please join us again. You can find our Prime Spark podcast on all popular outlets. Find out more about Prime Spark at www.primesparkwomen.com. Thank you so much to my guest, Teri Bach. And don't forget, you can find her at Teri that's TERI, at untappedpotentialcoaching.com. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Teri. Spread tolerance and love. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on Prime Spark. With each episode, Sarah Hart brings you conversations that inspire, celebrate, and empower women over 55. If you would like to listen to or download other episodes about remarkable, experienced women, go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com. This podcast is also available at Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. The second women's revolution is here, and we hope that you use the insights you've gained here to fuel the spark that will ignite your way forward, illuminate your path, and reflect your gifts in the world.
Have you ever asked yourself this question? Why is it so hard to make a buck? I know I have. Hi, I'm Sandra Yancey, founder and CEO of eWomen Network. What I have discovered after going from the brink of bankruptcy to running a multi-million-dollar award-winning business is this. You can't build $1 million dream hanging around minimum wage mindsets. My mission is 1 million women entrepreneurs generating $1 million in annual revenue. So here's what I've done. I've created the mother of all entrepreneur success programs that you can access online on your time. It's called Monetize Me Now. It's a 7-module online course that is 100% my success formula, covering mindset, mission, management, motivation, marketing, and measure. Come on, take my hand and I'll show you the way to learn to earn flowing revenue for your business. Visit monetizemenow.com for details. Calling all speakers, eWomen Network has speaking engagements all over North America that must be filled. Are you a gifted messenger, author, expert, or successful entrepreneur that can help women entrepreneurs grow their businesses? Our mission is to help 1 million fulfilled women each achieve $1 million in annual revenue. If you're a speaker that can help women prosper, go to eWomenNetwork.com and sign up as a pro member of our Speakers Network. That's eWomenNetwork.com. Thanks for listening. This is the EWN Podcast Network.